to our community, but I'm unclear how that's driving you to perform better, to increase social value, is what I'm getting at.
So our KPI, I'm just going to go back to the contracts and the KPIs we have in the contract. So we set annual kind of footfall targets, and there's a growth every year. And this year we've set a target of 5% growth compared to last year. Part of Everyone Active's brand philosophy is getting people more active more often in our leisure centres. So for me, this all fits in with the way that social value works, and it's a good byproduct of, if you like, of the things that we do on a day-to-day basis, what we've signed up for with the council in terms of a contract, and we're getting this great benefit to the community, and savings to the NHS and everything else. So I think it does join up. Although I take your point, I'm not targeted on social value, but there's a huge amount of competition now within our company of which site's got the greatest social value, and it drives us all to be more creative and making sure that we have got more people coming through the door. So it's kind of joins things up, really, I think.
And so just have one more thing. I think one of the things that members rightly challenge us as the council team who manage the contracts and Alison and Everyone Active in terms of delivery is around how we're making sure we're hitting those people that aren't your typical 5 days a week, already within that category of doing 150 minutes a week. And in a way, this is one measure which helps demonstrate that, because clearly the social value that comes from getting some of the less healthy, less active people through the door accelerates this or increases the social value by a greater amount, if that makes sense. So this is a good way of reflecting that, which is one of the things we often struggle a little bit to do. We can count numbers through the door, but sometimes just numbers through the door doesn't paint the true picture of the value that comes out of that. So this is one way which I think is really helpful, and like I say, we rightly get challenged by members to try and demonstrate how we're helping those people that need the help the most, and this partly does that.
Thank you for that. Councillor Warwick, you have a question.
Yeah, thank you. And it sort of follows on quite nicely. So I go to the leisure centre quite often, and your demographic mix is really good. So I know you have a stroke class and it's just really impressive to see 20 or 30 people struggling to get up to that class, and they find their way. But it's really rewarding. And they go get their nails done, then they go and have a coffee. It's fantastic to see that. And I guess your drivers are Sport England, that Energise Me, and our public health strategy, which is all about getting people more active, improving the quality of life. And it's quality that there's a sort of health service measurement of quality of life. But how are you targeting the sort of, we're trying to get older people active, and there is a fair range, but do you have groups that you need to target more, and how do you go about doing that? So how do you increase the number of elderly who are perhaps using the leisure centre?
We're really blessed in Winchester with our 50 plus club, and they've got 600 members, so they're very well catered for. It's good program they have. All of that data goes into our usage figures and everything else, so fairly well represented. We've got I think the brand's inclusive. We are working with lots of different partners to try and target different demographics. You mentioned the stroke group. We've got dementia cafe, working with St John's now. Lots of different partnerships. NHS is really kind of developing, and that's the way I think things will progress, by using and working with external partners to sort of make those inroads. And things have come on dramatically since we opened. It really has. I don't know if you've seen our health and wellbeing programme, but some of the things we're delivering now and the numbers we're getting through the door is incredible. So.
Can I just add something to that quickly? So your question about targeting a specific age group, I just kind of wanted to highlight that actually the good thing about the leisure centre, it has a quality is very high. I would say every demographic is hit well, and the centre are always looking at how they can make sure that everyone has opportunity to a really good offer, whatever it is that you're looking to achieve on site. So yes, there are target groups, but in reality, the target is everyone.
I'm just going to jump in there as well to say that one of the things that we do look at our quarterly meetings is the breakdown of the demographics of who is coming to the centre. Are there groups that we're missing that we need to target more? So that is part of the discussion that we have with EA and with the wider team.
Okay, Councillor Greenberg.
Thank you very much. I wanted to say that I'm a doctor, so I found it really interesting and useful actually to see a numerical value put on the benefit of exercise. And I think it's a really great good news story. I was really pleased to see some of that. I've not seen that sort of analysis before. So that was great. And what I understand, this is me harping on about the same thing, but what work does Everyone Active do to try and encourage your members to walk or cycle to the centre rather than to drive there? Because obviously if we can encourage people to be active getting that, not only does it help us with other things we've been talking about today, but also it helps with the amount of social value and the amount of activity. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a green travel plan that was submitted as part of the kind of planning conditions. There is definitely work to be done. We're just working with Anna Heron at the council, so we're just about to launch a green travel survey to our customers and staff to find out a little bit more about how they get to the centre. So that's kind of starting point. So there'll be that'll be launching in the next week, and we'll have that will run for about 6 weeks, and then we'll collate that data, and then I think we'll start to do some real work on it. But no, I think there is definitely room for improvement in that regard. Just being honest.
I might be overstepping but it would be good to think about linking up some infrastructure to you and making that quite logical, kind of easy way to get to the centre. So any collaboration on that, given other things we've talked about as well, would be really great. Thank you.
I think Councillor Tippett Cooper is up next.
No, I'm very interested to see this too, and I think the answer potentially to Councillor Bolton's question is what's in it for you, Everyone Active. Is that, well, I don't want to get too philosophical here, but what's the point in any private company if that hasn't got a purpose and a vision? And clear Everyone Active's vision is to make everyone active, and this helps kind of put meat to the bones of the actual benefit that it's delivering as a company, which I know it motivates employees. It provides, like I say, that vision and purpose for the entire company. So I understand exactly why you'd want to do sort of set this out. I was just picking up something in the paper about the visitors numbers are absolutely astonishing and really a credit to both the council and Everyone Active in terms of getting figures up to 751,000 visitors at the Winchester Sports Leisure Centre in year 2 is really impressive. I did note that there has been swimming lesson numbers have fallen slightly this year, and that's a priority area for improvement. So the question is how's that? What's the plan of Everyone Active to address that firstly? And I also acknowledge that there's huge amounts of pressure on you in terms of increasing costs. And I know there was recent concern about the increase for under 2s for swimming lessons. And I was just wondering whether, if things improve in terms of cost base, if things improve in terms of numbers, whether there's a possibility of reviewing whether that under 2s going free again could come back in for Everyone Active. So those are my 2 questions.
Just remind me of your first question. Sorry, you had 2 questions, didn't you? Just remind me of your first question. Swimming lessons, yeah, sorry. We did take a bit of a dip. We've had some challenges in terms of recruitment. We've discussed it at length throughout our advisory boards. It was an industry-wide issue. Lifeguards, swimming teachers were very difficult to come by. And we've turned a corner. But as a result, the schemes kind of remain static or kind of gone slightly backwards. There's a fair amount of competition in Winchester in terms of swimming provision. We've got kind of really detailed growth plans in place now. We've got a really strong team. So there's no reason why we can't turn a corner. We're hoping to have that number up to kind of around 1,600 in the next kind of 12 months, which is great growth. We had huge growth at the start, and then it's kind of plateaued off. In terms of costs, you know, across the industry, under 5 swimming was looked at. Number of operators have were either charging or they've introduced charges. So it's something that we've had to look at. You know, we don't like increasing prices, but it is, you know, the kind of reality. We haven't had that much feedback about it. We've had a few comments. Most people understand the challenges that companies face these days. You know, we've got increased staffing costs, utility costs, equipment costs. I think most people are, you know, understanding in that regard, and it is a minimal increase. It's a minimum amount to pay. So it's £2 for that kind of age group, and we haven't really had to do too much else. But you know, the reality of it is that everything is going up in price for operators too. So.
And sorry, just to reinforce, so from the council perspective, just in case it's not clear, that those charges are sort of wholly within the charging strategy that was set out in the sort of the contract. So you know, it's not that Everyone Active's doing something that you know was not part of the contractual sort of proposal. So.
I'd say one thing, just coming back to the swimming lessons, I think it's just important to remember, you probably would have heard some of this potentially at council questions last night. Although we're talking about there is a slight drop off in swimming lessons at the moment, I think it's important to remember that swimming lessons currently going through Winchester Sport and Leisure Park for operators are double what they were from River Park. So we have still seen growth within swimming lessons. It's simply, you know, there is kind of capacity to do more. And then just picking up on Steve's point about the fees and, you know, the charges for under twos being within the contractual obligation, that the ability to do that has been in place since the beginning of the contract. So we are, another way to look at it is we are fortunate that we haven't had those charges in for 2 years of the contract, because it has been within EA's gift to be able to do that. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here with a question, but also a comment, I guess, mixing debate and question, a bit naughty really. I'm really intrigued with the concept of social value. I think it's an interesting concept that you've presented to us. As with any metric, I think it may take a few iterations before we'll kind of wrap our heads around what it's useful for, what it's not useful for, and so on. But I guess the specific question I had, it's a nice simple question, but I wanted to frame it in that way, is when you have a metric, you inevitably create league tables. I mean, if you're active, you get competitive. Well, not everyone, but we are a tendency to get competitive. We want to be top of the league. We want to be top of the squash ladder, whatever it is, we want to be top of it. And so when I was looking at the numbers, I was, you know, looking at where we stood on the total social value. We had a good, well, the Winchester Leisure Park in Winchester was right up there, really good, makes you feel good. But there's so many factors, like the size of the population, that will affect that. So I think maybe a metric which is the per population, per visitor, which you've got in there, is perhaps a more useful one to be benchmarking. But then I thought, but what about Meadowside? So what that metric shows is that Meadowside is well down the ladder compared with, even on the per visitor, compared with the Sports and Leisure Park. Is that good? Is that bad? I don't know how to wrap my head around it. The simplistic thing says, well, it's much lower, we've got to focus on that, but maybe there's other reasons why it's lower. So could you just sort of perhaps give me some colour around how to interpret the differences in the two numbers? Thank you.
Thank you. I think I've done a bit of analysis on some of those top 10 and the type of facilities they are. So if you look at Harrow Lodge, which is I think number one, it's over 4.3 million for a site in our portfolio. It's a bigger site than Winchester Sport and Leisure Park. So it is all about footfall and then making sure people are multi-active in the types of programmes they've got in there, which I think we're very similar on. But if you've got greater footfall through a facility, you're going to score higher on the social value calculator. Meadowside's footfall is a lot lower. It's a small site. The facilities are a lot less than a big swimming pool site, and it's as simple as that. That said, I think we are sitting slightly below on the national average, so there is things that can be done. We've got challenges in terms of data capture there. We haven't got access barriers like I've got at Winchester, so it's a case of somebody physically showing their card in the gym or at the reception. Some of the groups we have, some of the really great parent groups that we have there, we're not gathering their data, and I think I've made a point later on in the paper about the importance of trying to gather the data of partners that we work with so we can improve those scores, because while it's a very community based facility, in the way that the activities are set up there is a lot of them are delivered by partners, and we haven't got that data, so we are already conscious of that. And I think that now we know a bit more about social value and how it's calculated, we can do the work to improve slightly. So
And so if I can, Chair, just to add to that, I think for those people that sort of know Meadowside very well, it's a very different type of facility. And obviously I don't know Everyone Active's portfolio of 220 facilities, but it comes 145th and 145th in that list. So it's not kind of bottom quartile. And I would hazard a guess that in terms of, if you like, scale and size and what's on offer there, it possibly is in bottom quartile. So it feels a little bit like it probably is a bit of an assumption here, but it feels like it's maybe punching above its weight in that respect. And also those figures, there's some figures under section 4.2 of Alison's report that just show that even given it as a relatively small community-based centre, it's still the social value is still above the national average that's showing. So it kind of feels like, you know, it's reflective of the type of facility that it is, and actually it still feels like it's in comparison to what it is. It's actually performing really well in social value terms. So
yes, I'm glad, Steve, you drew attention at the end towards the national averages per person, because I think that's the more relevant metric. Meadowside is never going to be anywhere up the top of the list when you've got those huge sites, especially fantastically new ones like our one. So Meadowside can't compete in that. And that's just, if you like, the warning about having numbers end up with people putting them in tables and potentially drawing the wrong conclusions. That's just the risk. Whereas I think the per person metric is probably better, but still subject to that risk. But as I say, I think it's great that we have that metric, and look forward to how it develops. Shall we move into debate, as I've already started talking in debate? Is that a debate question or a question? Is that a debate or a question? Question. We'll have a question.
I'll keep it brief and I won't debate. It's probably a question more for the officers, but it's as you said, the national average for Winchester is the SVC per person is doing very well. It's very impressive. But what I remember of my statistics GCSE, that's a self-selecting sample. That's out of the people who go to the actual centre themselves and access it. And obviously, because it's an amenity for the whole city, I'm just asking whether we are collecting demographic data on how it is used by different areas of the city. Because obviously, when I knock on doors in Week and Hasdock, they just say they can't get there anymore because it's on the other side of the city, and it's no matter how great it is, if they can't use it, it's not a great amenity for the city. So I'm just asking, is that data being collected as well?
we do have, yeah, we do have that data, and I think it's something, again, we've discussed this. It's been discussed, I think, probably here in the past, and it's something that we can do more with. So yes, absolutely. I mean, what this sort of calculation doesn't do is obviously reflect the sort of the geographical demographics of a place like Winchester, or not the demographic, the geographical distance of a place like Winchester. But what it does do is clearly it picks up the nature of the demographics of people coming. So the algorithms and things behind the calculation that comes to the 3.5 million does reflect the nature of the people that are coming in. So it definitely reflects demographic. There's definitely more work we can do, and we've talked with Alison about that in terms of at the local level, how do we make sure that, you know, those people who aren't coming, who for various reasons, some of it geographical, some of it lifestyle and other things, that, you know, we do what we can to do that. There's actually, I think there is an awful lot that does get done, and Alison mentioned some of the schemes and the programs that are done to engage people who aren't your normal leisure centre goers, but there's always more that we can do, definitely.
Okay, thank you. I think let's just move into the debate phase if we're going to have any debate. I know we've commented as we've gone. Anyone want to make any comments? Okay, I'm seeing lots of shakes of the head, which suggests that we're getting beyond 9 o'clock. So if I could just thank you for, thank you, Alison, in particular, because this is an EA initiative. I know it's been supported by officers, but there is an element of risk in exposing this kind of stuff. So I'd like you to thank you for sharing that. I think it's an intriguing metric. I think we on this side need to learn how to interpret it. No doubt, you know, you'll be evolving how you use it and how you present it. I can see it has the potential to help councils potentially defend some of the funding and investment in sports and other leisure facilities. So I think in that sense, it's something that's very useful, and it should, you know, it goes beyond just counting revenue through the gate. And I think it hints that actually there's more social value in getting certain types of people through the gate than your classic, am I allowed to use this phrase, gym bunny, who will just go through the gate anyway and be in there 5 days a week. I have to confess, I've probably been to the leisure centre more times for a coffee than I have to actually exercise. But in my defence, I probably spend 10 hours a week on a bike elsewhere. So I'm not completely a couch potato. So thank you very much for bringing that to us, and thank you to you, Steve, and the other. Sorry, Brian's gone. Laura and Kathleen for introducing the paper to us. Thank you. Oh, I've got some recommendations. I have just, by the next meeting, I will have got this. Now, I don't have to read them out, do I? So I think the members of the committee have noted the recommendations, and hopefully we have explored the subject in sufficient depth. So thank you again. Right. I think this is the last item on the agenda. And this is to note the work programme for the rest of this municipal year. I think I hand over to Mrs. Adey to just talk us through that.
Thank you, Chair. You've got the work programme in front of you here, includes today's items. So if we look at the next meeting for the 5th of December, you have 4 items, including a speaker invited who's yet to confirm. They can definitely come, so that one's to be confirmed. So quite a full agenda for December, and 1 item on there for February 24. And added to your work programme was the table that Councillor Crimoisen referred to at the top of the meeting with regards to the items you discussed at the end of last meeting, and whether they needed work programmes to come here or whether they would be seen elsewhere. So that's there for your information.
Thank you, Mrs. Adey. And if I could thank Claire and yourself for valiantly capturing all those items that we raised in the brainstorm. Several items have actually been covered, as I noted in the earlier comments, and I'm aware that Councillor Brophy is following up on the EV points in areas where people don't have street items. So thank you. The next meeting of Health and Environment Policy Committee is on the 5th, as per the work plan. If I could thank everyone for attending today and for raising interesting questions and probing each of the subjects. So, and thank you for officers who have stayed right through, and other and portfolio holders for staying through to the end of the meeting. And the time is about 4 minutes past 9, and we'll close the meeting. And I should use my gavel, shouldn't I?